All right, we've reached the second step in our site suitability analysis. We've identified the problem. We identified criteria in the last video, and we also converted that data to raster data. Now we are on the third-ish step of our analysis, where we are starting to think about our criteria, not just the 4 criteria we have, we're starting to think about the criteria within each data set. So we'll start reclassifying all of our data. For this site suitability analysis, where we're looking at electric vehicle charging station placement in San Diego County, we'll start by looking at, let's start again at our distance variables and thinking about how we're going to reclassify those. So what is reclassification? So it's taking our values within the layers, and we're going to be quantitatively scoring them according to their suitability for electric vehicle charging stations. Now, this can be done for whatever project you're interested in. When we look at something like Euclidean, location or proximity to existing stations or proximity to roads, our Euclidean distance output gave us this raster. Let's look at. Start with roads. Gave us this output raster, so the surface of data that's telling us exactly how far away every cell, every pixel is from a target. In this example, it's the roads, so it's giving us that straight line distance. So in our reclassify tool for roads, let me open that up for you. You can see what it looks like. Whoops, too much. So this is our part of the tool we're looking at right now. First, of course, I set the environments. Second, when I was using this tool, I dragged the input in from my, the input of this tool is the output from my Euclidean distance tool. So that's why you see the colon 2, it's telling us one of the outputs. And we're also reclassifying the value field. So that's our distance. And basically, I just wanted 4 classes here. So that was one of the things we had to do, was decide on our number of classes. So this has to be the same for all of your data sets. So 1 through 4 for all of our data sets is how we're going to be ranking. And I based this off of the income data because I had that sort of the 4 classes. Maybe it's 5. Anyway, shoot. Hang on. All right, so we do have the 4 classes of acceptable data, 1 through 4, and then I pulled up the median income. We do have the 0, that's the unacceptable, so we'll just be ignoring that from the analysis. And one of the things I want to mention on the Google Slides, on slide 35, there's a great breakdown of a criteria table that I pulled from an article that will be linked to on the Canvas page. But basically, looking at values least suitable to high suitability, you can make these numbers whatever you want. I like to keep it simple, 1 to 4. And whatever value we rate our criteria, we will be using that for our matrix algebra later. So you can see with roads, least suitable I have as greater than 5 miles. Highest suitability is less than 2 miles. And we could change that. What's nice about models is that we could go back and reclassify if we needed to. We wouldn't have to redo the whole model, just change this part here. So one thing to be aware of is the unit for your data set. This data set is in feet. So these distances are all calculated by feet. So greater than 5 miles is the least suitable. So then this tool was ran. We haven't done this in a while. Let me just show you how. So that tool, if you want to pull any tools, oops, too far. Come back. Reclassify. You can double click to add the tool, and then I mentioned that I was pulling in data. The output from one data is the input to the new data set, and that we're just holding down, clicking, and an arrow will form. set it as the input raster, and then you can open the tool here, and we're going to delete this in a second, but we could say we want to classify, we want to base it on four classes, and it'll calculate out the 4 classes, and then I just went in and changed the start and the end point to whatever 2 miles is. So, you know, it's like a little over 10,000. Anyway, so I just went in and edited that. I knew I wanted the 4 classes, and then I think I clicked on this to reverse the values because the best option was close by. All right, let me delete this guy. Okay. Shoot, this is what I did not want to have happen. That's okay. I won't record the reclassification of land use. We can, of course, do the same thing for, this is the distance from existing sites, existing electric vehicle sites. And where is my reclassification or criterion rating table? So distance from public charging stations, least suitable, close by. We want it to be a little bit further away. I might even want to change this a little bit. Swap these 2 categories. But I'm going to lay off that for now because I'm going to be changing something else with the income. Okay, so you'll click that. Same idea, drag the tool in, drag in your input, click on classify, set up the 4 classes, and then you'll need to edit the values. So here again, we're seeing least favorable, close by, most favorable, far away. If I did want to change those classes, it's as simple as just changing, I don't have to redo all the other numbers. I can just change them here. In the new values, but let's, like I said, change them back because we're just changing one thing at a time. Okay. Median income. This is the one we're going to want to change. So this is how I had it set up in class. I had the 4 income categories, and this is actually a suggestion made by the class that so the rebates have the lowest, the most rebates in the classes with the lowest low-income communities, underserved communities, multifamily housing. So for that, I originally had the highest suitability was the low income, lowest suitability was high income. And there was a lot of discussion in class and in my head about cost of electric vehicles versus rebate costs. So it's, you want the infrastructure to be there, but you know, affordability. So the suggestion was, which I'm going to try out in this example, was to change the class order and put this second lowest income class, the $55,000 median income to about $75,000 as the most suitable. So you have a little bit more flexibility there. Still economically disadvantaged according to the rules of the county. And then, of course, set the places with no income as 0. So they're not included, or so they're, you know, not a factor or not given any weight in the final analysis. So we're going to change that. And we can look at this reclassify tool for land use. This is our last categorical data set, which I'm going to have to completely redo. But so for this one, same idea, setting things like water, transportation, military as 0 points. You can also, if you just want it to completely ignore the water, we could set it as no data. You can do the same thing for the transportation, and it won't even look at it as a possibility. Yeah, let's give that a try. That'll be fun. And then things like ranking high those commercial recreation areas, so places where people gather, multifamily residential, that was another hot spot. Parking lots, you know, gotta have space for it. And then 3s, places where people work, commerce, industry, parks, public services like cities, churches, schools, libraries. And then single family residential, and that was the only thing at 2. And then the lowest was vacant and agriculture. That was just our classification. So this is, again, that reclassification process. We are coming up with ways to assess our data, figuring out which is most important, which has the most influence on our data, which has the most influence in that category. The last video that we'll do is we'll be figuring out the influence for the broader categories, but it all starts here. And I'm going to get my model to run while you guys are not watching, redo the land use classification, and then we'll have some fun in the next video looking at ranking within, or ranking between the classes instead of within the criteria.